Hello everyone, hope that you are doing well. It's sort of holiday season here in Hong Kong. It's sort of mid to end of July coming up to August, and lots of people go away seeming to escape from the heat or indeed the typhoons. We had one just before I was recording this, which is quite exciting. We had a T8. Our system goes from T1 to T3 to T8. I think it's T10, and maybe it goes in a spinal tap way to T11. I'm not entirely sure. Now, I'd intended originally to talk about data in this video because there was a news story a couple of weeks ago suggesting that China and Hong Kong had come to some sort of agreement in principle for rules allowing free flow of data from China to Hong Kong. Currently, that's not very easy because of the new Chinese data laws, in particular the Personal Information Protection Law. But as much as I was hoping to give you all sorts of details of how this actually works and what you had to do, we have no more information. I fear it's going to be one of those situations where we get told that some changes are coming, but we don't actually know until they actually arrive. So instead, I'm going to talk very, very briefly about artificial intelligence again, but in a slightly different way, not how it works, not some of the concerns, but about ethics. Now, I've talked a lot about AI, how it's used, how cool it is, how it could be misused by bad actors, and I've given a lot, and it's not an understatement actually, a lot of talks over the last few weeks to sort of industry groups, also to cybersecurity professionals, on what I think the challenges are with AI, where I think we're going with it, and what we should be worried about. What I haven't really talked about at all is ethics, and it's been put into the spotlight because the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission in the US, they are essentially grilling OpenAI, the creators of ChatGPT amongst other things, on how ChatGPT works. They're looking at what sort of data it collects, how it is used, where it's stored, essentially a real ethics investigation as to whether AI is being used properly, whether it's doing something it shouldn't be doing, or whether it somehow infringes on people's civil liberties, whether it's their right to privacy or some other right not to be defamed where it's spreading disinformation, who knows. And certainly we've also seen that AI is being used more and more. I see it used lots, certainly on social media in terms of copywriting. People are creating their stories via AI. And that in itself gives a bit of disinformation within there because we don't necessarily know where the sources are from. So it made me think whether we actually need some rules around this. And certainly that must be what the FTC is thinking about too. Now, what is weird, what's really surprised me is that Google's response has to announce that their version of AI, Google Bard and all of their AI platforms, are more ethically sound. They have more, basically better ethics, if that's even a phrase, than OpenAI's ChatGPT, without really giving any information. I think they're taking the view that their information comes from more public sources, but again, I don't really agree with that. And at the same time, you've got Meta saying that now with their sort of open source AI form, they're the most ethically sound because they're run by whoever's running whichever program, whichever AI platform, whatever they're doing on their actual platform. And again, I'm not sure about that. So I've talked briefly about how AI is used. You feed information into it, you ask it to do something, it will create something for you. That's in the loosest sense of the words. That could be a nasty letter to someone, it could be some code, it could even be a picture. But it runs entirely on the information that it has actually gleaned, the stuff that it's been fed, the stuff that it's relying on, the stuff that it can search, the stuff that it can use. And that could be anything. And I guess that's kind of the problem. It could be anything. Where it's Google, we assume it's running off some of Google's back end and looking at everything that's accessible through a Google search engine. OpenAI, we don't necessarily know. It says it's read pretty much the entire internet. It's a large language model. We don't really know exactly what's being used for Meta. You can create different sources of different AIs. And that makes me wonder whether we should be thinking what impact the use of AI is actually having on an individual and whether we need some ethical guidelines. Now, I've talked about the EU before. They have rules on automated decision making whereby you shouldn't have a decision made about you that somehow disadvantages you without a human being involved, without a human decision maker being in the loop. That's one way of ethics to think of it, and I think that's a good idea. I think we should actually have that in all jurisdictions. You can't have a computer says no scenario. But in terms of how AI is used in other ways, perhaps we need, and this is something that you'll have seen a lot, the equivalent, I guess, to a data collection statement or a personal information collection statement if you're here in Hong Kong. Essentially, when you are giving up your data to most organizations these days, depending on what jurisdiction they're in, they have to tell you what data they're collecting, what that data will be used for, how you can get access to that data, how essentially you can have that data deleted, whether you have a right to be forgotten, a right for that information to be removed from whatever systems. And I wonder, I don't wonder, I actually advocate, I think we need the same thing for AI. I think that organizations, in much the same way they have to have ESG statements in terms of how their gender diversity or diversity in general is working within their organizations, should have some sort of, I guess, a general ethics statement or an ethics, at least an ethics plan, at least saying something of what they intend to do. And where they're collecting your data, or rather they're using AI in the course of their business, they set out exactly what that AI has access to, what information it will take, what information it will use, where that information is stored, how that information will be used when you're dealing with other people, and they may just say in compliance with data protection laws, and also how you complain if you feel like you've been mistreated through the use of AI. So if someone has decided to, I don't know, block your access to a service, or has deleted you from some database, or is sending you automated demand letters that you have no way to actually get rid of them coming through, because AI could easily do that, you actually have a recourse. And then essentially the equivalent of some sort of ombudsman or somebody, some AI overseer, that sounds far too sci-fi, some AI person who makes sure that you don't have horrible things happen to you, which doesn't sound quite as cool. Maybe I'll go with overseer, to essentially police that. And then police companies are using AI in the wrong way, because artificial intelligence is not going to go away. I would say that the majority of people I'm speaking to, be they clients, be them contacts, be they people that I just speak to at an AI event, are embracing it and looking at ways they can use it. But I think the last thing that a lot of them are thinking about at the moment is how they actually affect people within their business, or those who use or are affected by their business. I think they're looking at their cost savings, the automation proposition, and also in some cases where they're all going to lose their jobs. But maybe what we actually need is some sort of ethics statement, probably by large institutions or corporations to begin with. But I think what we'll see in the long term is perhaps you'll see them on a state-run basis. I know China already has one. They issued some guidance, I think it was just last week, saying that any use of AI has to be within parameters what the state will allow. It can't be used to spread disinformation. It has to be in line with essentially the Communist Party's views and beliefs. Very similar to what they do with the internet. I wouldn't expect other jurisdictions to go anywhere that far. They may talk about not endangering national security, but then China's worried about that constantly. But they would talk about not essentially protecting the rights of the individual, making sure that the individual is essentially not at the mercy of some horrible AI overlord. I think it's a good idea. I'd be very, very interested in your views on this. I think it's something that if enough people get together, we could actually create a way to actually be a bit of an advocate for this, to stop people using AI in the wrong way, and to make companies wake up that while AI is a great thing, people are concerned as to how it's going to be used, and they don't want to be somehow, I guess they don't want to be someone in the Terminator movies, although only in a bureaucratic form. Because you think about it, AI has the ability to make your life a bureaucratic nightmare, and certainly we can do that enough without any AI in the mix. But anyway, that's just my thoughts for a one-off video. Given it's holiday season, I thought I would keep it short. Do get in touch and I will be back. Hopefully we'll get some actual details about this data changes for China and Hong Kong. But if not, I'll be back very soon with either a video on that or a video on something else. In the meantime, if you are on holiday, have a good one. I'll see you very soon. Take care.